The world didn't collapse in one night. It collapsed one mortgage at a time, and no one saw it coming. But the warnings were everywhere. This is how 2008 shook the entire planet. The story of the 2008 crisis begins long before the crash. It begins with a dream that every American could own a home. Banks loved this dream too, because every home loan meant profit. And profit meant growth. And growth meant greed. By the early 2000s, interest rates had dropped sharply. Borrowing money became cheap. People rushed to buy homes. Investors rushed to buy mortgage-backed assets. Banks rushed to approve loans. And slowly, quietly, dangerously, a bubble began to form. But this wasn't an ordinary bubble. This was a bubble built on risky loans. Loans given to people who could barely afford them. These were called subprime mortgages. Banks didn't care if people could pay or not, because banks weren't keeping the loans. They were selling them. Wall Street firms packaged thousands of these risky loans together. They created something called mortgage-backed securities. They sold them with AAA ratings, ratings that claimed these investments were completely safe. But they weren't safe. They were ticking time bombs. Investors around the world bought them. Pension funds bought them. Governments bought them. Everyone believed American real estate would never fall. But real estate always falls eventually. And when the first cracks appeared, nobody took them seriously. Homeowners began missing payments. Foreclosures started rising. Banks ignored the warnings. They kept pushing more loans. More risk, more danger. This was the calm before the storm. And in that calm, one giant stood at the center. Lehman Brothers, a 158-year-old financial powerhouse. One of the biggest investors in mortgage-backed securities. One of the loudest believers in the housing boom. One of the biggest risk-takers on Wall Street. But behind the scenes, Lehman was drowning. Their assets were collapsing. Their loans were failing. Their debts were skyrocketing. And yet, the firm insisted everything was fine. But everything was not fine. Lehman had built an empire on unstable ground. And when the housing market started slipping, that empire began to shake. The warning signs were flashing red. But the world did not know what was coming next. Nobody realized that the collapse of one bank would shake the entire global economy to its core.